to query that map. If we maybe had a drone fly over it and we had a point cloud so that, you know, I actually had height of the picture, it's still just a picture of that point in that it flew, but it actually has a piece of information that says this picture is at the tip top of the tree that's 30 feet up.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
But if a picture it's just a picture.
Gotcha. Not something you can really kind of create unless you have the field data there.
Right. Now, there are lots of good sources for raster data, and it might be that sometimes the picture that's already there is very helpful to help us prove our point. But it's not really something that I can query or ask the map a question like I can with one of these. So where was my, is that this one? No, this one. Hotspots. Or even these biomes. So if I turn on these biomes and say, hey, let me, so see when I'm looking at this table, it's telling me, nope, there is no table. All there is an identifying marker. Oh. So the fact that there isn't a table tells me that this probably was originally raster data.
Oh.
Those vectors, go back to this guy over here. Where was that fast food? There it is. This guy over here, if I tell it, show me, see all this stuff? Mm-hmm. That's the table, right?
Yeah, different columns.
I've got a table of information that I can ask this map some questions. The other night when we were on and we were wanting to, he was asking about sidewalks, right?
Mm-hmm.
So those sidewalks, we said, hey, you know, how many miles of lines are within that shape of a census block? And so because the lines are a vector and that census block is a shape, a polygon, then we can compare those two things and say, hey, tell me how many are within each one of those. We can ask the map some questions. So why bother, right? Well, we need to bother because at least down the road, you guys are going to be working with data and information. So I don't know what everyone's projects that they have planned are, but we're going to need to ask the map some questions. You're going to need to collect, or not necessarily maybe collect personally, but with the Nourish project, we are getting out there and we're creating those tables. We are filling up the data table with information. We're making the dot on the map that says, hey, for this dot, here is all the information associated with this dot. Now I can take that dot and I can represent it in a different way. So let's take this, where are we? We're in Indiana. And let's try and put this in, let's edit this layer and look at some other way that we could represent this information. So this says counts and amounts. I've got a collection of fields here that I could choose from. So it just picked a default, but let's say maybe we want to go with population. So if I stick population up here, now it says, oh, well, since you're doing that, I'm going to take each one of these. I'm going to guess these are counties. I'm going to take each one of these counties. I'm going to put a dot in the middle of it. And that dot in the middle is going to represent the size of the population in that county. And that's a little hard to see. So I'm going to go over here to my base map and let's give me a light canvas. That's a little easier to see what's going on. So this is looking at two things because it realizes, one, that it's got a collection of points within there, which is represented by the color. And then this size is population. So we added, what was it, fast food? Not even sure how reliable this information is, but we've got some information to play with. We could look at dot density. Is this really giving us better information? And so when you're trying to put together a collection of maps and data to prove your point, to tell a good story, then I've also got to be careful about which things that I pick. Is this the better way to tell this, or is this the better way? Depends on the message. Maybe it's not up here in, this is, scrinkerize that. Maybe I don't want it to count the points. Maybe I just want it to do population. Or maybe I want to add some other field. Population and median age of women. See what happens. So now I've got this population and I've got these interesting dot sizes that now represent the age of women. So that's why when we're looking at in the long run, I mean, also this is a little hard to see, so maybe I need to go into my style options and pick something that is easier to see, or perhaps is better representative of the story that I'm trying to tell, since these dots are about women. Maybe we need a color that seems a little more girly. Maybe some women would be bothered by that. So, you know, we need to go with something that seems a little more neutral. These are all things that we need to think about, though, as we're working through not only answering that main geographic question that we're trying to solve, but also as you guys are putting together your story. Any questions about that so far? I'm going to share with you, I didn't do this ahead of time, but I will put together some links and things that you guys can refer back to in terms of good cartography. Be careful to not, it's not just about what the pretty colors are, because sometimes color can have implications that maybe we hadn't thought of. So what are you guys thinking in terms of personal projects? What sort of topics are you guys thinking about?
I'm trying to make mine about like pollution for like rivers or major rivers across the US.
Okay.
So I was trying to find like point source pollution sources for like different rivers. I was
Yep.
gonna start off with the local one here in North Carolina, the Catawba River.
Uh-huh.
Expand to other bigger rivers, maybe.
Yep. There are lots of data sources about natural resources. So.
Mine was a little bit more towards like financial services. So I know Charlotte is like the #2 largest banking sector. So I wanted to talk a little bit more about how like some places where they don't have banks, or a lot of people have to rely on predatory services like what's it called? There's a term for it. Payday loans, things like that. So
Oh yeah.
yes, I wanted to really talk about like how although we are known as a banking sector, there's still many areas where people don't have those like these sources and they're underbanked, so they have to rely on different things. So
Yeah.
I was trying to highlight that. So that's a little bit why I wanted to use business analyst, because I know I've looked at it before and it's really easy to plot like different points like banks, credit unions, things like that. So
Mhm.
I just need to, I guess, get better at finding financial institutions and making layers like that, so that
Yeah.
I can map it. But that's kind of where I'm at right now. I have the idea. I just need to start mapping it.
Yeah. So one of the things that you need to keep in mind about some of those tools like business analysts
Mhm.
is that it's a little more prescribed as to how the map shows up.
Okay.
If you want to play around with like we're playing around with these dots tonight, if we want to play around with that data a little more and experiment with what I'm querying and which things are getting paired up, like you mentioned, you know, access, maybe we want to compare that to a minority population, or
Right,
maybe
like
we want to
demographics.
compare that to, so if we want to do that with one dot that is a color and a shape, and both of those things are represented, you may need to have that data over in this space to be able to play around with that.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah. But it's good to, you know, get you started or think, if I can find that data, that would be really helpful.
Yeah.
Anybody else know what you're thinking?
For mine, originally I was gonna do something to do with like a disease and location.
Yeah.
But I think like because you know recently the new measles outbreak just happened in Texas. I think I kind of want to do something like mapping the spread of that because you know how like they think a new variant came up. So I think I want to like try to do something with that, the spread of it. But yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Go ahead.
I think that's it. That's all. I just want to see like maybe connecting it to like I know the school that where it started, only like 48% of the school was vaccinated, so I might want to like connect those two as well. But yeah.
Yeah. So maybe looking at vaccination rates and as well as some of those other things. Yep.
Yeah.
So health data in particular, and it's funny you mentioned that because this week I have been on a mission to find data about the bubonic plague. I know why you're asking, because I am working on a project for a world history textbook. I'm making GIS lessons to go with this textbook, and I got assigned the the chapter about the plague, which seemed simple enough up front, but there is less data than I thought that there was, as I'm just did some initial searching. And what I'm realizing is that I'm probably going to need to take some data that I find actually in a book or a photo, you know, an image of a map, you know, like one that was printed in a book, and translate that or redraw it onto my GIS map, to actually show what was going on in 1347 in Europe when the plague wiped out millions of people, literally millions of people. So you may have to sometimes go to an alternative source. You may have to kind of think about, well, how can I creatively still show this information? So with my plague example, I may have to crank up the ad and do a sketch layer, and I may need to actually draw on this map an option that, you know, where I'm actually labeling an area and go, okay, well, this is the area, and give it some pop-up information. It might not be in the traditional sense that we can query that information, but sometimes the message that I've got to get across is, well, here's where it was, and I wasn't able to get that in a vector that someone else had already created because, well, they didn't have GIS in 1347. Anybody else?
My project is about food insecurity and like the food bank. My county food bank does delivery routes. So I'm trying to help them like well, my project would probably help them with logistics and like helping them deliver more efficiently to more food insecure areas.
Okay. That and get you a job. Somebody's hiring for that data. So you'll want to take advantage of the tools. So there's a routing tool that you may want to take advantage of. Just pay attention to how many credits that it's when you run that. Do you guys know about that? About how to check how many credits that it's gonna use?
I wouldn't.
Not sure.
Let me show you that real quick. So if I decide that I want to do some analysis, and I go over here to my tools, and oh goodness, let's see.
Summarize within.
Yeah,
It's a
let's do
costly
a
one.
summarize within. So I've got and I'm not going to actually run this, but once you start to fill that in, then this pops up here and it says estimate credits. Oh, it said credit estimation failed. But what it would tell me, it wants me to go. Spot. Yes. So it's important that you do this because while we generously probably have enough credits for you guys to do your work. This is just going to cost 1.55 credits, that's not much at all. But if it said something like 100, maybe we need to rethink it. Because I'm guessing, Dr. Ray, that we don't have gazillions of credits.
We actually do.
Oh,
Yeah.
we do?
Yeah.
Okay.
There's
Well,
like-
don't spend the $100 at once.
We
It's
have
not
hundreds of
a
thousands
good
of
practice.
credits. Yeah.
I think there's a cap of like 250 on everyone's licenses, but you can remove
I
it.
did put caps on everyone, but I can lift if I need to. We have quite a full bank of credits.
Excellent. So the summarized data ones don't cost as much in terms of credits, The ones that are a little more spendy are the enriched layers. Use proximity is not terribly expensive. But it's just a good lesson to be mindful of, because one of these days when you're off making maps for someone else and you don't have this lovely stack of free credits, they aren't free out in the real world. The company actually has to pay for credits as they get used. Good. Anybody else got a project this year? Ideas?
So I actually do have one, Ms. Barbaree.
Yeah.
It's here. Let me see if I can pull it up real quick. But the idea behind it is okay. That is not the right. Man, there's too many darn files open. Okay. It's not really a project, but it's more of a I guess like story map, because I'm just curious about like how many data sets I can find for this and how many of them I'm gonna have to crowdsource, or not crowdsource,
Okay.
but just manually input. Oh, I can't share. But it was about like kind of mapping like America's icons. So I wanted to do like